Joining me now is Farm Bureau President Dean Norton. Dean, thanks for taking the time tonight.
Nick, thanks for the opportunity.
So we're here at the New York State Fair. We're here in the cow barn of the New York State Fair. You know, walking around the fair with all the fried food and some of the attractions, you wouldn't necessarily think that this fair actually has its roots in agriculture. It's something that's run by the State Department of Agriculture and Markets. So when people come to the fair, what should they know and learn about agriculture?
Well, I'm hoping that when they come to the fair that they're taking time out to come through the dairy barn and the sheep barn and the equine barns and all the other cattle barns here, and just come to see the animals, and then starting to get an understanding of, food isn't on a grocery shelf or in the milk aisle. That there's actually an animal that produces the milk that we use every day, and if you're having a hamburger, it's probably coming from an animal. So I'm hoping that they're learning a little bit about agriculture and what it's all about.
And how did fairs like this start? You have county fairs and the state fair, where they all seem to be centered around agriculture originally. How did the state fair start with farming and agriculture in the mix?
I don't know exactly how the state fair started, but fairs basically started as competitions in the counties so that farmers could get together and they could compete against each other to see who had the best cow or who had the best lamb, and then it's evolved into now we have a state fair, and your county winners are coming here to the Syracuse, and they're competing against all the other winners across the state to see who's got the best cow in the state, or they got the best lamb in the state. So it all started out with competition between farmers to just see who's got the best cattle for the year.
What's the state of agriculture right now in New York? I mean, a lot of people, especially folks who live downstate, might not necessarily think about this, but New York is a big agriculture state. Yeah. At the same time, I think the Census of Agriculture that comes out from the U.S. Department of Agriculture showed that the number of farms, while they're getting larger in New York, the number of farms are actually shrinking.
The number of operators is going down.
Suggesting that a number of farms are consolidating, a number of long-run family farms might be going away. Mm-hmm. Is this a real problem right now in agriculture in New York?
I see there is a consolidation going on between some of the I would call it the commercial farming operations. But we also have a renaissance going on. If you look at some of the smaller farms, 5 acres or less, the individual that's got a little niche market, they're selling stuff on the roadside stand.
They're diversifying into organic cheese, other things like that.
You're seeing a renaissance, so to speak, of that smaller farmer. Some people call them a hobbyist, but they're wanting to know where their food's coming from. They're producing their food, and whatever extra they got, they're selling to the neighbor down the road or whoever's stopping by to buy it. So as far as the quote unquote large farms, or the commercial farms, you could say maybe there is some consolidation going on there. But in the industry, I think there's a groundswell of people trying to come back to their grassroots in the agriculture and understanding where their food's coming from, and knowing that when they walk into a supermarket to buy something, that someone took the time to plant that crop, to harvest that crop, and to pack and ship that crop so that they could enjoy it that evening.
And New York is actually also, aside from being a big farm state, it's one of the biggest dairy states, behind Wisconsin and Iowa. I mean, a lot of people probably don't even think of that. When they think of dairy, they think of Wisconsin, Iowa, maybe California. Yeah. What's the state of the dairy farmer right now? The price fluctuations in the dairy market tend to, vary wildly. It's like a roller coaster sometimes, making it very difficult for farmers to turn a profit when they turn around and sell their wholesale milk to a wholesale distributor. So how are dairy farmers doing right now?
Dairy farmers are surviving right now, I guess, for lack of a better term. In 2009 we had quite the tsunami.
The bottom fell out.
The bottom fell out. The economy fell out everywhere. Exports dropped. When the exports dropped, there was an oversupply of domestic milk here. So we've slowly been climbing out of that. Prices have been strong this year, but with strong prices have come the strong input costs. Our corn prices are up, our soybean costs are up, fuel costs are up. So we're making a little more money per hundredweight than we did a few months ago, but our costs have gone right up with that. So I don't want to say we're in a precarious position, but we're in a tough spot right now. And the dairy industry is actually taking a look at itself and looking at the pricing mechanisms and trying to decide, do we like the way things are priced right now, the way we're paid right now? Is there a better way? And there's been an effort going on since 2009 by many groups, whether it's National Milk Producers Federation, the Holstein Association, many groups.
And Senator Gillibrand actually has gotten involved in this too.
Yes.
I think actually when she was in Congress, she started this effort too to kind of re-look at or take a look at how dairy is priced, which is a very, very complex.
Very complex. I think there's only three people that really understand it in the country.
Right. But it's
they're
actually,
not your eyes. So.
And they're actually measured by the hundredweight.
By the hundredweight.
Which is, that's a unit of measure that you don't really hear that often. I think other than milk prices.
Right. You get paid per hundredweight of milk, which is 100 pounds of milk, and you get paid basically what's called a blend price. And milk is classified into 4 different classes of milk, whereas you have your a fluid class, then you have 3 manufacturing classes, whether it be your yogurts, your dips, your cheeses, or some of your sports drinks. They're all classified different. Prices put together, you get a blend price. So, like the industry, we're having the conversation now. How do we want it to be funded, and what's the best way?
Then again, you talk to the independent farmer, even when times are booming, and they seem to always say, well, we're surviving too. I mean, isn't that kind of the mentality, though, for a lot of farmers, that they're always kind of living very close to the bone,
living on the edge,
and that at any moment, what looks like good times could actually be wiped out either by market forces around the world or something that's happening locally, like say the weather.
Right. Well, I think some people could say this year's been a great year for farmers because the prices are high and everyone would think we're making good money. But if you look at the weather we've had, the East Coast, we had probably the wettest spring we've had in decades. A lot of the farmers couldn't get out in the fields in May at all when they would normally get out to plant their corn crop or their soybean crop. A lot of those guys didn't get in until June. So if you look at that, the crops are going to be down, which means the costs are going to be up. I just listened to a fellow president from Indiana, and they generally average 150 acre bushel of corn. They're harvesting right now, and they're getting 75 bushels for the acre of corn. So that just means the markets are going to be tight. The prices are going to go up because of tightness. So if that's what you're hearing is, I don't want to say it's the woe is me, but times are tough, and this is what we're having to deal with.
We should also say the Farm Bureau, you guys are the big governmental affairs and outreach program. You're a lobbying group, essentially.
We are
for farmers around the state.
Yep.
How were your legislative priorities met this year in Albany?
We had a great year in Albany this year. When it came to the budget, agriculture was the only industry or group that had money put back into the governor's budget from what he had proposed in January. We were thankful for the governor for that. We were thankful for the legislature for understanding the importance of agriculture in New York and for putting those funds in. We supported the governor in the tax cap. We've got that. I think overall it was a very good year for Farm Bureau and farmers.
And we're almost out of time, but I have to ask you before we leave, sweet corn versus onion.
Yes.
I know the Farm Bureau itself did not take a position, but did you personally take a position? How did you vote in your Facebook poll?
Being the president of the New York Farm Bureau and being by vegetable, I didn't vote in the poll. I had sweet corn last night and I had onions on my salad yesterday, so I'm liking both.
Splitting the difference.
I'm splitting the difference. Like any good politician, you walk down the middle.
Well, Farm Bureau President Dean Norton, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thanks, Dick. I appreciate the opportunity.